The regular meeting for Thursday, November 16, 2017 has now been called to order. We will have the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Guillory.
Yes, I'd like to call on Pastor Norman Tallman from New Life Church International. He also have a couple of gentlemen with him that he was going to do.
Okay. I have two young men of our youth ministry with us, one visiting from Venezuela, Ramon Marufa, and Anthony Lubin. Thank you for the invite, and thank you for all that you do. Father, we are grateful for the community of Southwest Louisiana. We thank you for what's happening here. We thank you for the opportunities, the open doors, and we ask that you grant the wisdom that we need for us to take hold of all that you have for us here. I thank you for every juror, their family. Thank you for the wisdom that you impart into them tonight, all of the community that is represented here, the issues that are on the table for discussion and deliberation and decisions. Thank you for the spirit of collaboration, partnership, and community. And we receive all your blessings tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Yes, sir. Mr. Abshire?
Here.
Mr. Antoine?
Here.
Mr. Harris?
Here.
Vice President Brame?
Here.
Mr. Collins?
Here.
Mr. Farnham?
Here.
Mr. Guillory?
Here.
Mr. Landry?
Here.
Mr. Latour?
Here.
Ms. Mayo?
Here.
Mr. McMillan?
Here.
Mr. Scott?
Here.
Mrs. Trimmie? Hello. I'm here. Hello. Mr. White?
Here.
And President Kittredge.
Thank you, Ms. Kathy. We have a few housekeeping items. For those of you that have cell phones or any type of pagers, we ask that you would put those devices to silence so that we can conduct our meeting on tonight. We have a pretty large crowd, so we want to make sure that everyone's heard. And if there's anyone that want to speak on any of the items that's on tonight's agenda, we would ask that you would fill out one of the blue slips to the rear of the room, and please bring those slips up front to either Ms. Jessica or Mr. Sam Gabb so that we can make sure and put you on the agenda for tonight's meeting and make sure that you're heard. With that being said, we'll move on to item number 4. Take appropriate actions on applications for liquor and beer permits. Mr. Crane.
Mr. President, we have 21 renewals tonight. We recommend they be approved.
I have a motion by Mr. Landry and a second by Mr. McMillan. Is there any discussion? Any objection? That motion will carry. Item number 5, consideration of approving the payments of all current invoices.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Andrepont and a second by Mr. Barris. Is there any discussion? Any objection? That motion will carry. Item number 6, consideration of approving the minutes of the regular meeting of the police jury dated October 19, 2017. I have a motion by Mr. Landry and a second by Mr. Abshire. Any discussion? Any objection? That motion will carry. Item number 7, consideration of approving the parish-wide drainage liaison committee report dated November 13, 2017. Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Parish-wide Drainage Liaison Committee met on Monday, November 13th, and received a report from staff which included a brief review of the framework established in the spring of 2015, drainage mission, guiding principles, policy objectives, and operational and maintenance objectives, and corresponding information related to that original framework. It was noted that $17 million is being included in the parish's proposed budget for fiscal year 2018 to address regional watershed projects, street-level priority projects, and street-level road preparation projects. A copy of draft number 4 of the proposed revisions to Chapter 26 of the Calcasieu Parish Code of Ordinances relating to drainage standards was presented and discussed. Several persons appeared before the committee, many of whom expressed a desire for a deferral of the proposed revisions to the ordinance to allow additional amendments as recommended by the Alliance for Positive Growth, and to allow review of a proposed drainage master plan when prepared by the consultant. Also discussed was a proposed timeline going forward, including a hearing and a recommendation by the Planning and Zoning Board on November 14th, followed by final action on the police jury on November 16th. Following discussion, the committee recommended that the police jury approve the proposed revisions to Chapter 26 of the Calcasieu Parish Code of Ordinance relating to drainage standards as submitted to the committee on November 13, 2017. Based upon that unanimous recommendation of the committee, I move to adopt the proposed revisions.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Scott and a second by Ms. Mayo. Is there any discussion? We do have discussion. Mr. Landry.
If I may, of course, we've been doing this now for 3 years. I know we don't all agree completely with the ordinance as it's written. So I'd like to make a motion to amend the main motion.
Second.
And to amend, I make a motion to propose revisions in the following ways. Number one, limit the requirement to obtain a runoff management plan, which is RMP, to all new subdivision developments and commercial and industrial developments, and allow an RMP requirement waivers in specified cases. Number two, maintain current drainage easements and open channel design requirements at a slope of 3:1. Number three, clarify results of the parish's failure to inspect new development to note that the parish's failure to inspect within 5 days will not delay a project.
I had a motion by Mr. Landry on those amendments and a second by Vice President Brame. Is there any discussion? Is there any objection among the jurors? At this time, do we have any comments?
Well, right now, just to clarify, we're only taking a vote on the amendment, the amended motion. So that is open right now to the jurors.
Okay.
And we'll open up for main comment. If that motion is approved, then we've got a new main motion that's been amended.
Okay.
So then we would open up for public comment.
Okay.
So if
Any
there's no further,
discussion? Any
no further
objection?
discussion, yes. Okay.
Yes,
On the amendment.
on the amendment only. That motion will carry then. We will now move open for public comments.
Yes.
The original amendment.
Is the main motion as amended? And Mr. President, if I may.
Yes, Mr. Gabb.
There were a lot more cards than filled out than what you have right
Yes, it
there.
was.
And a lot of the members for the Alliance for Positive Growth kind of pulled their cards to cede their time to others. So we're going to have kind of a varying degree of time. So if you just bear with me, I think we've got it all worked out. Mr. Hankins and Mr. Yakusak are going to take the bulk of that time from APG,
Okay.
and they're going to do 5 to 6 minutes each. I'll get with them to figure that exactly, and all the other speakers are 2 minutes.
Wonderful, Mr. Gabb. We do appreciate you on that. Thank you so much. At this time, I would call to the podium Mr. Tommy Cryer. Please state your name and address for the record, sir.
My name is Tommy Cryer. I live at 3883 Deer Run Road, Lake Charles, 70611.
Thank you, sir. You may proceed.
All right, well, according to a police juror, these ordinances will do nothing to take care of any existing problems that we have. And most of the problems we do have were caused by development before 2007. New development hasn't been one of the main causes of the drainage problems that we have. But one of the problems that it is going to cause is going to pile on to an existing problem because we're pricing our kids out of this market. And that's not our problem. We're grown, we're adults, we already have our property. But these kids don't. Where we paid $15,000 for our lots, they're paying $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 for theirs. So all this is going to do is raise cost, which our kids can't afford already. And then I'd like to end with a question. What in the world are we doing here voting on this whenever the Planning and Zoning Board already let the people's voice be heard and they said no because they saw it like we saw it? You know, do y'all have an answer for that?
Mr. President, if I may, just a refresher on public comment. And unfortunately, it's not a question and answer session.
Yes.
It's a time for comment. Certainly, questions can be made to the panel, but they're rhetorical in nature.
Yes.
Unless that opens up discussion, maybe after public comment between you guys.
But it's not a rhetorical question. I would like somebody to answer me and tell me, since the zoning board has let the people's voice be heard, why are we voting on this? Would anybody like to answer that?
I'll give it a shot. Go ahead, Mr. Scott.
Go ahead, Mr. Scott, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you for your time tonight, Mr. Cryer. The Planning and Zoning Board is put in place by the selected body to hear and gather information. They're not the final say-so. This board, this jury is. So we appreciate their thoughts and their input, and we take all that in consideration. But when it comes to this final adoption of an ordinance, the jury has the final say-so, and that's just how it goes.
But I would like for you to consider that was our voice.
Well, then I'd like for you to vote for them for police jury if they'd run. Thank you.
We have comments by the jury. Mr. Landry.
I was just going to make sure that everyone knew there were, like, half of the board members weren't even in attendance of the meeting. I think three, at least.
I agree.
At least three were absent, so.
Would Mr. Tom Jones please come to the podium, please? Please state your name and address for the record, sir.
My name's Thomas Jones. I live at 967 Ravenhurst in Moss Bluff. I'd just like to speak on the drainage for just a minute. I know there's a lot of conversation, debate regarding the technical aspects of the proposed regional drainage plan. A lot of the questions as to how much it's going to cost and who's going to pay for it. From the studies that we've seen, 4 of the 8 gravity drainage districts in their 2015 audited financial statements showed a collective $34.5 million in current assets. Of these, districts 4 and 5 have over $22.5 million in cash or investment accounts. Districts 2, 4, and 5, and 7 have 6.8 years of operating cash reserves, not inclusive of capital outlays, which vary from year to year. District 4 and 5 have a property tax base of $1.6 billion that generates total taxes levied at just under $8.2 million a year. About 10 months ago, Lakeside Bank commissioned Ladner & Bloom to conduct a study to evaluate market trends in the real estate in Calcasieu Parish. We evaluated many aspects of the real estate market, but I wanted to call 2 components of that study to your attention tonight. In the last 2.5 years, single-family residential construction in Lake Charles and the unincorporated parish was valued at $368 million, not including the value of the residential lots. Now we know that homestead exemption will reduce that tax base, but when you add the value of the lots, the headline number above will reduce only marginally. This additional tax base will do a lot to enhance the tax revenues across all of the 8 drainage boards, but more dramatically in Districts 4 and 5, whose tax revenue in 2015 was $8.5 million. Finally, I'd like to bring to your attention the fact that in the city of Lake Charles and unincorporated parish, there are currently 7,473 residential lots in various stages of planning, permitting, and development, not including the city of Sulphur. Over 50% of these 7,473 lots are concentrated in Lake Charles City Council District F and Police Jury District 10. So please keep in mind the proposed drainage ordinance relative to the windshield, not just the rear view mirror. 3 questions. Does this study drainage plan take into account where those 7,473 lots are going to be developed? 2, how much of this plan is
30 seconds, Mr. Jones.
Got it. By the cash revenues of the drainage districts who have almost 7 years of operating reserve in the bank? And if the districts are not paying into this plan and 3 years plan for drainage improvements, why are they not? If the answer to any of these questions is no, my request would be that the ordinance be tabled by this governing body until these factors are considered. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. This time with Mr. Ralph Lewing. Please come to the podium. Please stick. Okay, thank you, Mr. Lewing. With Mr. John Powarowski.
I'm going to follow Mr. Lewing's move and defer as well.
Well, thank you.
Mr. President, I don't, unfortunately, with the rules of the body, if when called, you almost have to either come up or not. You can't defer your time, or it's either kind of a yes, no.
Okay. Would you want to come up, Mr. Ralph? I'm only following legal counsel.
No, thank you.
Okay. Mr. John?
I'm going to pass as well. this issue than even I can.
All right. Would Mr. Charlie Atherton please come to the podium? Please state your name and address for the record, sir.
Charlie Atherton, 122 Vine Street. The first thing we need to do is change the rules. I mean, this is really not fair. As we speak, the staff had requested, and you have ongoing, a Feimster Maker parish-wide watershed planning and strategic analysis relative to drainage. All we're asking is we need Mr. Landry to add that the last amendment that you left off, and that would be to defer implementation of these drainage ordinances until the ongoing Feimster Maker parish-wide watershed planning and strategic analysis, RFQ 2017 PW 132, is completed and the recommendations are incorporated into an approved parish-wide drainage master plan. Want to make the motion?
No, I'm not, if you're speaking to me.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Atherton. At this time, would Mr. Dan Rhodes please come to the podium? Please state your name and address for the record, sir.
Dan Rhodes, 29 North Perkins Ferry Road. In my opinion, corrected drainage is what we need. We've needed our drainage corrected parish-wide for many years. 2 small culverts, 2 culverts installed too high. Ditches need cleaning. Areas in the parish, including areas in the city of Lake Charles, needs pumps to adequately drain property from large rain events, not retention ponds. I'm against the so-called drainage ordinance for the following reasons. These stormwater retention ponds will not take care of our flooding problems and will not correct drainage problems. The cost of these retention ponds would drive the property prices up and make it more expensive for owners to buy and build homes. Property owners wanting to develop their property will lose valuable property due to the large land area required to build retention ponds for holding rainwater. Government taking up property is what this boils down to. South Beauregard Parish is booming, and I've met some owners who are leaving Calcasieu Parish because of all the excessive cost from Calcasieu Parish regulations. Liability is another concern with these retention ponds. There's been children drowned in retention ponds. More government controls placed on property due to these retention ponds. More government employees will be hired due to more extreme regulations and policing / inspections of these retention ponds. Maintenance costs will be passed on to the homeowners. Existing homes and subdivisions bordering these new retention pond developments have more flooding problems due to the runoff from the higher elevated land created in these developments. After a few rain events, these ponds fill with rainwater. Then a large rain event comes, such as 5 inches and above. The retention ponds can't hold the excess water, so other homes and buildings.
You have 30 seconds, Mr. Rhodes.
Well, I won't finish. From the existing water drainage, Orleans Run is a good example of this. I'll just pass over this since y'all are cutting me short. I videoed this. The retention ponds flood other areas. The water coming out floods other areas. This is more government control is what this boils down to. We need drainage. We don't need more government control on our property. We need our freedoms. I have a lot more to read, but y'all shut me down. Okay, no problem.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes. Would Mr. Michael Hankins please come to the podium? Please state your name and address for the record, sir.
Good evening, Michael Hankins, 419 Alamo Street, Lake Charles, 70601. Thank you all for having us tonight. I wanted to first start by just kind of outlining what we've done as a part of a drainage task force that the Alliance for Positive Growth has put together. There were several members, about 16, 17 members of this task force, ranging from engineers and attorneys. And I'll name a few of these folks, or all of these folks, just so you can get a sense of the type of people who've been looking over this drainage ordinance and working closely with the parish that has led to a few of these amendments that we're talking about and have talked about in the past. We have Robin Bassone, who is formerly with Calcasieu Parish Health Unit, Ricky Blackwell, who's with the Drainage District, is retired. We have Donald Cunningham, Jay Delafield, who are attorneys, James Geisler, engineer, Adam Habits and Scott Henry, landowners, Walt Jessen, who's engineer, long time with the city, Jeff Cudla, architect, Lee Longsaw, engineer, Billy Lofton, former city attorney, David Menton, engineer, David Richard, who's with Stream Wetlands Properties, or Stream Wetland Services, excuse me, Michael Sanji, who's with CSRS and also with the parish, and Mike Whitler, who is a former head of gravity drainage. So a lot of these people have spent a lot of time, about 8 or 10 hours in the past couple of months, going through these things and trying to come up with suggestions for the best way to handle this ordinance. And some of those things are obviously, starting to happen. So it's been good, and it's been good working with the parish. I want to touch on a few of these changes that you talked about that Mr. Landry proposed. We are on board 100%, obviously, with the residential removal for the requirement of them having to pay the fee in lieu of drainage. That can be a real big issue for a homeowner and really is not a significant issue on the drainage when you're talking about the minimal amount of impervious cover. But that doesn't exclude subdivisions, and we're certainly on board with that. The inspection scheduling, we appreciate you guys making that amendment as well to hold the parish accountable as we, as developers and other stakeholders, are being held accountable. We think that's an important step. The drainage design standards, we appreciate you guys also looking at that. The 3-to-1 slope is certainly a slope, and the easements currently are certainly adequate for the drainage that we need, and we appreciate you guys looking at those things. I wanted to ask one question about, I wasn't entirely clear, one of the things we'd mentioned was that if a project is under 2 acres or under 20% impervious cover, I believe currently we have to request a waiver, and we had proposed that this would be an automatic qualification for a waiver because it's totally objective, it's black and white, it's easy to see. I wasn't entirely clear if that was a part of the amendment or not, but we certainly feel that it should be, even if it wasn't.
I'll have Mr. Wainwright comment on that, sir.
Okay. And then the last item is a tricky one, and it was left off of the amendment. But see, it has to do with the coastal flood zones versus the inland river flood zones. This is a big issue. I know we're all on the same team here as far as wanting to improve drainage, but I know we also don't want to incur hardships on properties where that hardship will do nothing for drainage. And so we encourage the staff and the police jury to continue to look for ways to not create a hardship on these areas in the southern part of the parish that are susceptible to coastal flood zones, which fill mitigation will have no bearing on, and if they do not have a risk of inland river flooding. It's an important issue. We had proposed that we do not implement the fill mitigation in those AE zones, and even to regionalize it if we could, until we had a better, closer look at that. We still feel that's the way to go. However, I noticed that wasn't part of the amendment either. So those are the main points I wanted to hit, and wanted to once again thank the members of the task force who've worked so well, and thank the staff for working with us.
Mr. Hankins, we appreciate your professionalism also in comment on this. But I think Mr. Allen Wainwright wanted to make a comment on that question that you had.
On the comment on the case-by-case and the submittal or the need for a request, we will agree to that change. The only thing that will need to be submitted will be enough information to formally understand that you meet the criteria. So there's really two criteria at the end of the day, that you're less than 20% impervious or that you're smaller than 2 acres. So you'll have to submit enough information for that, obviously. We can verify that, but otherwise, I guess you could consider it automatic is basically what you were requesting.
Yes, sir.
And then on the AE zone thing, you're correct. We did not offer a change.
Okay. Is there anything else, Mr. Hankins, that you have?
That's all I have. I'll yield the rest of the time to...
We thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you.
This time we would like to have Mr. Bart Jakobczak please come forward. Please state your name and address for the record, sir. Mr. Bart, did you need to put that on some kind of easel or something so that
No, thank you. I'll hold it up.
Okay.
Bart Yakubzak, 1450 William Street, second floor, Lake Charles, Louisiana, 70601. President Guidry, Vice President Brame, members of the jury, thank you for this opportunity. Tonight I stand here wearing a few different hats. First and foremost, as a citizen of our great parish. Second, as a representative of landowners in the parish, including my employer, Jack Lawton Companies. And finally, as a board member and a spokesperson for the Alliance for Positive Growth, APG as it's been referred to. Over 200 member representatives of industry realtors, developers, contractors, grassroots effort led by volunteers in keeping our parish the greatest parish in the state. This group has raised nearly $200,000 this year to focus its efforts. There are things tonight we all agree on, whether jurors, staff, developers, contractors, citizens, and especially those unfortunate citizens who have experienced flooding events. We absolutely have a drainage crisis in southwest Louisiana. We also agree that there are three main pieces to addressing that drainage crisis. And that's why I brought the chart. This is a new parish chart that was unveiled for the first time that we've seen it Monday night at the Drainage Liaison Committee meeting. It simply shows there are three pieces. There are three parts, three pieces to the puzzle. It's been called three legs to a three-legged stool. You have integrated watershed management in the middle, planning and projects, which have been talked about, maintenance, which has been talked about, and then number three, why we're here tonight, development standards, the new ordinance. They're all supported by smaller bubbles that define things such as under maintenance, agency coordination, road ditch maintenance, lateral maintenance, under planning and projects, modeling, regional detention, road ditch and lateral upgrades. And then we have development standards, which is the reason we're here tonight. Over 6 months ago, APG's first question to parish staff was posed. What about the other two pieces? And information was provided over the last 6 months. We understand the need for an update on the ordinance. It's been labeled as having new development pay for the sins of the past. But what about a plan that links all three together? What about a comprehensive plan that staff and the parish now calls integrated watershed management on the chart? A plan that all the citizens of Calcasieu Parish can rely on and look to for the parish to carry out. Now, I've not invested any of my time in communicating with you directly, with the exception of a landowner stakeholder meeting. I've worked with staff directly. It was long my thought that the private sector could work with the staff and the public sector and show unity and come to a compromise that would, in effect, link all three of these pieces together. Now, much progress has been made. Staff has worked fiercely with the task force, and Mr. Landry's motion is a reflection of that cooperation. But we've yet to find common ground on linking all three of these pieces of the puzzle together. In other words, passing the ordinance addresses one piece, but the citizens of the parish would be more comfortable that the other two are addressed at the same time. We propose a simple, prudent solution. If you choose to pass this ordinance tonight, link the effective date of the ordinance to the publishing of a plan. Well, and one might say, well, what's in a plan? We as a parish have, I searched the internet, the web page of the parish tonight, or earlier, and we have countless plans. I jotted down a few of them. We've got a transportation plan 2040, a hazard mitigation plan, a redistricting plan, a MPO transportation plan, a local regional workforce plan, a PHA plan. We as a parish know how to make plans. And that's what we're asking that you demand of the parish tonight, is we're asking that we have a plan, and that to ensure that we have a plan drafted and it ends up in a 3-ring binder in an office and published on the website, that you link the effective date of this ordinance to the completion of that plan. We're not comfortable with just a chart with bubbles, and we're not comfortable with a page and a half of guiding principles. We ask that you demand these bubbles be defined in a plan that all the citizens of Calcasieu Parish can refer to for guidance, for comfort, for direction on how they know that their problems will be solved. Now, you've heard from some tonight that think it's most reasonable to defer the passage of the ordinance, and if you choose to do that, I think most citizens would consider that prudent. But if you are so inclined to pass this ordinance tonight, we ask that you tie the other two pieces of the puzzle to the ordinance. Deem the ordinance changes effective only once a plan is published. We respectfully ask that you make a most reasonable decision tonight and demand a new binder, demand a new plan that we can all look at, refer to, and go to. We feel that this can be done before the current effective date that's in the ordinance, which would be June 2018, June 1st, 2018. We feel that it can be done before then, and we feel that if you tie it to this ordinance tonight, that it will be. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, sir. We do have some comments by the jury. Mr. Landry.
Thank you, Mr. President. There's no way that that can be done in that length of time. What Fence the Maker is going to do is going to take years, and honestly, there's no end to it. They will continually be working on the plan. It's not going to end. You know, if we have that mindset and we decide to wait, things continue to get worse. Well, when you don't pass this, it's just going to continue to get worse. Why allow things to get worse? And you know, he made the comment that he's speaking for the people. He's speaking for the people that he knows. I'm speaking for the people that call me by the hundreds. And there's another 200,000 people in this parish that decided not to come here tonight. They're living life, and they're all dependent on us to do the right thing. And they are demanding that we do something about drainage. And believe me, if they really understood all of what we're talking about here, and they realize that we're not going to do anything, we're just going to let it get worse for another couple of years until we come up with this plan, then we'll start doing so. That, to me, that just does not make good common sense. And there again, I appreciate you. I know you've worked hard, and you've been real good at all the meetings, and we're a lot better off now than we were a few months ago before you guys got involved. So I do appreciate you. I just disagree. And I think as where we stand tonight, y'all have almost gotten everything you asked for. And you know, and you're an attorney. I'm sure you go to court. You don't always win. Nobody always gets everything that they ask for. You have to compromise. And when you got, I think, how many items were there now? I'm trying to think, was it 5 items? You got 4 out of 5. That's pretty good. Personally, I would not have changed anything. I liked it the way it was. But, you know, same thing. I don't get everything I want, and I understand I have to compromise. I'm only one vote up here. But I think what we're fixing to vote on here is a good compromise. No, not everybody got what they wanted, but, you know, it's time to move forward, and people are wanting to see action and to see things happen. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Landry. Mr. Scott.
Since you ask. You know, to follow up what Mr. Landry spoke of, you know, they talk about this is not going to help anybody right now. Well, it's sure not going to continue to hurt people right now. You know, I got a letter from the state today, and the state in SB 179, 172, the last legislative session, they request that the Department of Transportation and Development, in consultation with state agencies, to provide recommendations to establish, implement, and enforce floodplain management plans for each watershed in Louisiana. Now, I say that because we've been speaking about this. We are ahead of the curve right now with what we are doing, but what we are trying to accomplish, we have watered down, in my opinion. I would have liked to have seen the ordinance as it was written 6 months ago take place so that as we continue to move forward, we don't jeopardize more people who are in the lowlands that are now being encroached on by water that dirt is now shoving their direction. So if we're going to continue to change the AE floodplain, when FEMA shows up in a couple years, They will now put people who were never in a floodplain in that floodplain, and we will be arguing like we are right now about how much it costs to be in the National Flood Insurance Program. Now, the benefit to this watershed is we have been asking for this for years across the southern part of Louisiana, and it's finally taken shape at the state level. And it's because of the work we do at the local level. The same people that we have spent money to hire to help us make sure we got this right, and that we looked all across the nation, and that we begin to understand these problems, and we don't just reinvent the wheel. How is it working elsewhere? We hired those people, the best that we could find. And guess who the state has hired? The same people. They hired the people that we recognized 2 years ago as great people. They understand this process. Let's see what they have to say about it. And the state has recognized that Calcasieu Parish is trying to be forward-thinking like other states have been for years and years at being resilient. Resilient does not cost you money. It improves your economic value down the road. So I think we have watered down this ordinance. I'm going to support the amendments because I believe we've compromised for months now. I appreciate the hard work that people have put into this. And so when we begin to move forward from here, though we've compromised, tonight is not the end. All these amendments, we'll discuss them in the future because the studies only help us do better. It's not a God study that says, done, drop the mic, fix the drainage. It's going to continue to get better, and that next study will come along and have to encroach on that study and show us how to do it better. We are the envy of the state when it comes to our rain gauges that we have in this parish. Most people in this parish don't even understand the technology that is in place here that helps this parish, that does move it forward. We have technology that shows our drainage, how it works, when it's working, if it's working effectively because of the rain gauges. We're going to add another 80-something rain gauges this year in that budget. We are doing everything we can to protect this parish, and I believe it's the right thing to do. If we're going to spend millions of dollars to protect it and own infrastructure, the ordinances should protect that tax money. If we're just going to spit the money out there and not do anything to protect the $17 million, I wouldn't vote for it. It's a waste of taxpayers' money. I've got pictures of Mr. Tom, can you give me those pictures for a minute? Because it's all about development. Now, does this look like that neighbor is a happy person? Look at the dirt in his yard from where this is what he has to contend with. You can just flip about every 10. That is already in the fence of the neighbor's yard right there. This is great development. This is really what our parish needs here. These people call this body daily, begging for us to, how do we fix these things? How can you work on these things? Now let's get to all of, look, what does this have to do with, don't do anything? Please defer it. Give us a master plan. One more, keep going. This is actually people that we are paying money to fix roads in this parish, and they don't even take care. The people we pay tax dollars to fix roads and stuff, they allow this dirt in our ditches, in our drainage system. Go to the next picture. That's just where the house is slowly coming. Keep going. Keep going. Look at this. This is the stormwater system that is supposed to be protected, and all of this construction going on around it is going into these storm drains. Who's to blame? It's development's to blame. That can be protected, it can be done. There's stormwater ordinances that we're supposed to be enforcing that protect us from that. This is what we're facing today. If we don't begin to enforce some of these things and take care of what we have, it's not the people's fault. I watch landscaper after landscaper blow leaves into the storm drains constantly. We create our own problems. The only reason we create ordinances is because people want to do what they want. It's not because the people who work hard are trying to do the right thing. That is a retention that does not work. It was put in place, it's not inspected, and now it can't do its job, but it was put in place at one time, and now look at it. What are we supposed to do about these things? I'm a bit passionate about this because I am one of the people who are affected by being in a floodplain when I shouldn't be. I'm one of the people on a drainage canal that I bought into, and I understand I'm going to affect myself. But at the end of the day, I wish somebody would have had the gumption 20 years ago to protect me and my investment when I was one of these young people that was trying to make a living. Thank you for all that rant and rave, and I appreciate their time tonight. Mr. President, is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Is there any other jurors that would like to comment at this time?
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. McMillan.
you know, a lot of my phone calls start out with, man, look, I've lived here 25, 30 years. I've never flooded. I've never had a problem. What's the deal? Why now? You know, the ground that was once pervious is now impervious. Guys, we can't wait any longer. Our constituents are hurting. We get those phone calls. I'm standing in those people's yard. I see the flooding happening. We've watered this down. We've compromised, and we're going to keep working on behalf of this jury to make sure it's the right thing. Yes, we want a maintenance plan. Yes, we want a capital plan. But we need to move forward now, and we'll get that to you. You got to believe in us. You put us up here to represent you. I believe in this staff. I believe that Brian Beam is a great administrator, and he surrounded himself with great people. And I think we up here as a jury are going to do the best we can to make sure that the drainage in Calcasieu Parish is the best that it can be. Thank everybody out here for all your hard work. Let's don't quit working. Let's keep moving forward together. But this is a major cog in the wheel that we need to move forward with. And I want to vote on this tonight and get it going in a positive way. And we have compromised, and we'll keep working to compromise to make it the best ordinance, best maintenance, best capital plan of any parish in this state. Hopefully we can rank anywhere in the nation. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. McMillan. Is there any other comments by the jury? Madam Secretary, can we move to a roll call vote?
Hold on. We got more speakers?
Yep. No.
No?
No, we don't.
No. Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Foreman. You have the floor.
Thank you. I tell you, I do agree that we're headed in the right track. We're headed in the right direction.
Wait a minute.
That it's
Wait, don't go. They gonna let him.
huh?
They gonna let him in there.
So, anyway, let me get my thoughts back together. I commend the staff on what they've done, but I don't think we're there yet. I think we're half-baked, maybe 2/3 of the way baked, and nobody would eat a chicken when it's half-cooked. So we're not at that point where we're all comfortable. I know I'm not. I can only speak for myself. I think that the fact that the municipalities will have nothing to do with this, they won't be on board. All we can do is hope that one day they're going to see the light and join in. But I think most of these developments that are anywhere close to touching a municipality will go ask for annexation so that they don't have to put up with these kind of rules. So I don't think at the end of the day we're going to affect in a positive way the drainage situation that exists today, because 75% of our drainage problems come from municipalities. They live closest to the end of the line of the stormwater system. So I, for one, can't support passage of this tonight. I don't think we're there yet. So I think it's a great thing that there was a compromise made on the residential. That was one of the two major sticking points that I had, was that residential should not be included in a fee, because at 22 cents is going to turn into $5 before you can turn around good. And I don't think it's fair to the onesie-twosie homeowner out there. That house that was shown up there, this ordinance will not fix that. There's nothing about this ordinance that will fix that onesie-twosie house from affecting anything. So I appreciate the hard work, but I'm not at that point where I'm ready to vote yes on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fornham. Legal counsel, we had a citizen bring up a card, a blue slip. When we asked earlier, if there's anyone that have any blue slips in the room, would please bring those slips up, because that time was given to the amount of blue slips that we were given. Is it okay by
the rule is typically that requests to appear must come before the item is called. As a body, as the president, you could allow it or somebody can make a motion to suspend those rules, and with a majority vote, you could allow it.
I'm going to move as president to allow him to come up and speak. Mr. Henry, would you please come forth and state your name and address for the record, please?
In 2 minutes, Mr. President.
2 minutes.
My name is Henry Missy. I live at 1315 West Parish Road, Sulphur. I wanted to maybe show y'all what y'all were showing a while ago about the dirt from the one house building up high, because in one of my subdivisions, they're having to build to meet the criteria now for insurance to get up high enough to where they can get with minimal premiums. And because they're in one of my subdivisions where they converted it from flood zone C to AE, all these people are having to do it. But on the other hand, if in New Orleans, I have a son that lives over there, and he just built a new home about 3 years ago, and they make them build a cement barrier wall to grade over there, and he had to put in fill about 3 or 4 feet to bring it up. Well, none of his dirt runs into the other guy's yard. And in my subdivisions now where they're building, our lots are half acre, which are nice sized and adequate. So when they build up, they're not having this dirt problem that we shown a while ago. But on the other hand, beyond that, main thing I want to say to y'all is right now, you know how bad a problem we're having with the traffic. Our I-10 and 210 bridges are just overdone. We need bigger bridges. The Hackberry Highway, they're enlarging it right now, which is a godsend. But what I'm wanting you to realize is to alleviate the traffic problem, y'all are going to have to get the roads widened so that you take care of the traffic. By the same token, to alleviate the water problem that we're having, we haven't done nothing. We haven't widened any canals or added any new ones. We've got to add new canals to take care of all the water that's coming in from all the larger landowners around us, because they're swamping us. This water is hitting the few little canals that we have, and in short time, they're to the top. We're already flooded.
You have 30 seconds left, Mr. Missy.
Okay. So I wish y'all would consider the fact that we need more canals in outerlying areas or holding ponds like they have in Metairie. You have them on Veterans Boulevard. You go to Esplanade, you have another one. It might be a drainage canal, but it's a holding pond by the same token. And we need something like that around here. And I think if we went to the large landowners, I think they would work with us. They might donate the land, and the parish may have to do the digging. But somehow or another, we need more holding ponds, we need more reservoirs, we need more canals. And I appreciate y'all listening to me.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Missy. We have a few more jurors that would like to comment on this. Mr. White.
During the Budget Committee meeting today, with this new ordinance, the plan was for 17, what, Alan, again? 17.2 in the budget for new drainage projects. And laterals came up, ditching came up. All that money came in for this budget for us to do these projects. I feel like we're not quite there yet, but this is an ordinance that can be changed. I've told everybody that I've talked to, an ordinance may be written, but it's not etched in a stone that's not big enough that can be changed. We do have to work. Drainage systems is going to change. We're going to have to change this ordinance next year, more than likely. So we have to start somewhere. And is this the best start? Maybe not, but we'll find out and change that start. You'll never have a finish line with drainage. I really don't feel that way. Mr. Henry brought up a good point with retention ponds and holding ponds. Do any kind of traveling. Fly into any city in the United States. Fly to Cancun, Mexico, that we just flew to this year. Fly into Cancun. It's surrounded by an ocean. They have holding ponds. If these things don't work, then why do they have them everywhere else? That's a point that just ride an airplane, look out the window as you land. They're everywhere. So that's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. White. Is there any other jurors that have any comments on this item? Seeing none? Madam Secretary, can we go ahead and move for a roll call vote at this point in time?
Yes, sir, this will be a reverse roll call vote on the motion as amended by Mr. Landry's amendment.
Can we state, can we,
Is
Yeah.
to approve the revisions that were recommended by the Drainage Committee on Monday, November the 13th, and then that was amended to amend the proposed revisions in the following ways. Limit the requirement to obtain a runoff management plan to all new subdivision developments and commercial and industrial developments, and allow RMP or runoff management plan requirement waivers in specified cases. Number 2, maintain current drainage easements and open channel design requirements at a slope of 3 to 1. And the third amendment was to clarify the results of the parish's failure to inspect new development, to note that the parish's failure to inspect within 5 days will not delay the project.
thank you, Madam Secretary, you may proceed.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mrs. Trimmy? No. Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. McMillan?
Yes.
Ms. Mayo?
Yes.
Mr. Latour?
Yes.
Mr. Landry?
Yes.
Mr. Guillory?
Yes.
Mr. Farnum?
No.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Brame?
Yes.
Mr. Barris?
Yes.
Mr. Anderpont?
Yes.
And Mr. Abshire?
No.
Motion carried, 11 to 3. 11
Thank you, Madam Secretary.
yeas and no, 3 nays.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to take a 3 to 5 minute recess, and we'll convene after the